They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
All right, guys. Every year, there's a time where we go, you know what? Our roster construction, our overall strategy, it needs to change. And that time is during the fantasy basketball playoffs and leading up to it. And I think now it's time to start getting ready. We are not just going to be talking about players to be targeting for trade. We're going to be talking about overall strategy at the same time and how you need to be able to construct your roster to take down your fantasy basketball championship. But before we get into the video, as always, I want to give a shout out to Premier Gang. Everybody who's subscribed to the channel has that bell hit next to the subscribe button and comes out and hangs out with me during these premieres. It means a ton. I truly appreciate it. I mean, we've been having over 50 people at pretty much every single premiere, and we've been smashing our like record like every single time. So we are going to continue to grow, and that's because of everyone in Premier Gang. I want to give y'all a massive thank you. And outside of that, I really have nothing else to say. Let's just jump into it. And the first thing that I want to talk about is overall roster construction. Then we can get into the players that we are going to be targeting. And yes, throughout the entire fantasy basketball season, it's a good idea to have depth. It's a good idea, especially this year, whenever there are all the COVID protocols, whenever it's just a wild season, especially with all the back-to-back games and players resting an absurd amount. Yeah, you want depth. You want guys that you go, you know what? If I had to start my best lineup, he's not making the cut. But he's going to be better than what I'm getting on the waiver wire. So over the long run, whenever I'm going to be able to nickel and dime my opponents, I'm going to be able to have an edge over a 3-month period. Yes, that is true. But there are a couple of reasons why this isn't going to work in the fantasy basketball playoffs. And A, you have to acknowledge the fact that when you're in your fantasy basketball playoffs, you're going to be going up against other people that have much better rosters, people that are going to have to meet that minimum threshold of saying, hey, are you this good? Are you this good? Just good enough to get into the fantasy basketball playoffs. You can't be one of those bottom teams. You can't be just coming out here and stomping these teams with your depth. You're going to be going up against the other juggernauts in your league. So we have to acknowledge the fact that, hey, your weekly point output is going to have to be higher regardless of if you're playing in a points league, regardless of if you're playing in a category format. You're going to have to kind of, like I said, nut up or shut up and go out there all the way to make sure you're maximizing your points during that stretch. And how you're going to do that is by accumulating your assets and turning them into studs. Now, if you've been hanging out in the premieres where I can answer your trade questions, if y'all noticed over the past week, I've kind of pretty much just been leaning on the side of the trade that has the best player. I don't want to say every time, but if the value range is close, I'm going, give me the best player, give me the best player, give me the best player. Because A, you need those stars in your starting lineup. And B, let's think about what's going to happen with the waiver wire, with players becoming available when we get into the fantasy basketball playoffs. So there are still going to be those guys that are popping up and you go, oh crap, okay, the Bucks are going to be missing 2 or 3 players. This means player X is going to end up getting 35 minutes. He should see rebounds. He should see some field goal attempts. He's going to be a priority waiver ad for tonight only. Guys, what's going to be so nice about the fantasy basketball playoffs is usually, say you play in a 12-man league, during the regular season, you have 11 owners that are potentially going after that one player. But once you get to the playoffs, you only have 6 owners going after that one player, including yourself, and that's if you play in a format where 6 of the top teams make it. And then think about it, every round after that, then you're going to have less and less competition to go after those waiver wire guys. So because of that, depth is going to be significantly less important. So you want to make sure the guys at the top that are going to be starters for you regardless are going to be in elite tier. That way you can get that edge over your opponent. Now, let's go through and let's talk about some of these elite players. And I will also say that, actually, no, let's talk about one more piece of strategy because this has been also a question I've been getting in the premieres. People asking me, Mason, what do you think about having 2 stars from the same team? And I say every time, hey, I like it. Especially in the playoffs when we know we are just hunting upside and we're not hunting a floor whatsoever. I mean, yes, if you want to diversify your assets, yes, if you want to diversify your stars across different NBA teams, that's going to raise your floor. Nobody is denying that. But if you create that stack in the same lineup, you go, okay, hey, maybe we're going to be chasing the Nets. Maybe the Nets are a team that have a 4-4-4 games during those stretches. We know that the Nets are probably going to be the best offensive team in the entire NBA during that stretch. You go, hey, I have 2 of those stars. We know that we are going to be getting a baseline of production that's going to be very hard for our opponents to match. And even if I understand you have the downside risk of, hey, what happens if we have a COVID situation? What happens if games get pushed back? Well, that sucks. I am sorry. Yes, it lowers your floor, and most likely if that happens, you are probably going to lose. But what happens when you play not to lose? When you play not to lose, you end up losing regardless. You need to play to win. You need to go for the highest ceiling possible because you're going to be playing the best teams in your league over this stretch. And we know that out of the 6 people that make your playoffs, only one of those teams is going to win. So most likely, you're losing regardless. So don't plan not to lose. Plan to win your playoff bracket, and that's the end of that. Now, let's get into it, and let's talk about some guys that I think we should be going out there and targeting. And specifically, let me bring up some names of players that right now they're going to be at a discounted value because a lot of people in fantasy basketball assume that they are going to miss time. And our first guy is going to be Kevin Durant. Okay, so with Kevin Durant, I understand this has been someone that we've monitored throughout the season going, okay, is he finally going to play this week? Is he finally going to get back to action? And I think what has been going on with KD is they are just taking the most passive route possible. They're going, okay, this is the best player on our roster. We know that we're playing for the finals. We are not playing for a playoff spot. Right now, the Nets are 24-13, right outside the top spot in the East. So when Kevin Durant comes back late March, I am personally going to be expecting Kevin Durant to probably be resting not every night, but just say every third night, making sure that he is load managing how he wants until we get down to the stretch going into the NBA playoffs. Because once we get down to that point, I think what we are going to end up seeing from this Nets team is I think we are going to end up seeing Steve Nash and the coaching unit try to decide the best way to operate with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving all on the floor. Because since the James Harden trade, we've had very limited action from all 3 stars together, and we need to see what the defensive switches are going to look like. We need to see what their game plan is, and by we, I don't mean the people watching. I don't mean Nets fans. I mean the coaching staff, because once they get down to the playoffs, well, yeah, they can be cute and they can play around with it possibly in the first round. Maybe they don't have to worry about their first round opponent. I think once they get to round 2, once they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they need to make sure that they know exactly what their game plan is. So in a traditional year where Kevin Durant has had a ton of experience playing alongside James Harden and Kyrie Irving together, I think, yeah, maybe Kevin Durant ends up sitting. But no, I think the reason he is sitting right now is so they don't have to worry about managing him going into the playoffs. So when we get to our own fantasy basketball playoffs, I think KD should be good to go. And like I mentioned earlier, we know that this is a team that during that 3-week stretch of your fantasy basketball playoffs, they play 4 games, 4 games, and 4 games. So even if KD just takes a game off a week, he is still going to be an impact player making a difference for you. All right, so now our next player, I think what we need to do here is, no, he's not injured, but we need to go, okay, the upside is there. Let's just go for it. Let's treat him like a star already and prioritize trading for him. It's going to be LaMelo Ball, and LaMelo Ball over the past 30 games has just been ridiculous. Since he's been named a starter, you've seen LaMelo Ball consistently average 35 minutes a game, and I'm not going to get into his specific stats because we've already talked about this. But we've had some questions in the recent premieres of people going, hey, Mason, should I give this for LaMelo Ball? And I'm sitting there going, yes, what are you doing asking me that? Go accept it before he changes his mind. Because LaMelo, I think there's going to be a drastic difference in what his current trade value is and the rest of season production. Because when you're looking at the statistics for LaMelo Ball and how you should be valuing him currently, what many people are doing is they are looking at these season-long numbers. And that's not what you should be doing. What you should be doing is you should be looking at the past month, see the minutes that LaMelo Ball has seen, see the field goal attempts as well as the efficiency and the assist, and go, okay, this is who LaMelo already is. He's 19 years old. Possibly he takes another step up from here. So if you can value him over his last 30 game statistics and just go, I think he may improve from here, I think that would make a ton of sense. Okay, so now let's get to our next player, and another guy that so many people are assuming is going to be load managing throughout the course of the fantasy playoffs is going to be Joel Embiid. And here, I don't see the signs for Joel Embiid to take that load management route. I understand that this is a player that has dealt with injuries in his past, but right now, Embiid is the front runner for MVP. Right now, the Sixers are sitting at the #1 spot in the East. And I'm going, you know what? This team probably would prefer to have that #1 seed over Brooklyn. Brooklyn's about to get KD back. I don't know if they want to kind of just risk losing that spot, sliding down the standings a little by resting Joel Embiid while they're going into the playoffs. So I know a lot of people are worried because of his injury history that the Sixers are going to decide to rest him a decent amount of back-to-backs. Personally, I am not. Now, this is something that I will completely admit. I could be wrong here. And if I am wrong, I am very, very sorry. But if you have a case on why you think that the #1 seed in the East is going to rest their star player anytime soon, regardless of his injury history, if I maybe missed a report or anything of such, because I know people have already been assuming that this is going to happen in the premieres as of late, go down to the comment section and let me know. All right, so now our next player is going to be another one of these injured guys where we've had conversations of people assuming that he is going to be load managed, and this is Anthony Davis. Okay, so here with Anthony Davis, I know you're not going to get him back until late March. I know that overall, we don't necessarily have a ton of clarity on this injury, but I think that we are seeing the same situation here with Kevin Durant. I think with Anthony Davis, yes, this was most likely an injury that he had to miss time from. I am not saying it's 100% made up. That's not what I'm saying in the slightest. But what I'm saying is I am saying that the Los Angeles Lakers had the shortest NBA offseason in NBA history. And Anthony Davis is someone that they are going to significantly lean on throughout the course of the NBA playoffs. So what I'm going to be looking at here is I'm probably going to be looking at the Lakers just doing the Kevin Durant route, making sure that Anthony Davis has as much time in the middle of the season, kind of a second off season for himself before he comes back. When he comes back, I think that we are going to expect that this Lakers unit decides to really get in playoff form, to really get pumped up going into the round 1 of the NBA playoffs. So that's during the stretch of our own fantasy basketball playoffs. So while Anthony Davis is an injury concern right now, I think that very similar to Kevin Durant, where a lot of people are going to assume, and they're already knocking their value as if they are going to miss time during the playoffs, I think maybe we just take the discount where we have it and go, you know what, if he misses a couple games, so be it. The waiver wire is going to be not necessarily as vicious as it is during the season, so maybe we can take advantage there. All right, so now our last player we're going to be bringing up is someone that I think as soon as he comes back, we are going to see him in action. It's going to be CJ McCollum. And here are the reasons why we are going to see CJ coming back into a full role right away is, A, they cannot keep leaning on Dame Lillard like this. The amount of work they are putting on Damian Lillard has been ridiculous. In a year where they're just playing back-to-back after back-to-back after back-to-back, you can't have your star player with this type of workload. So I think they desperately need CJ McCollum to come in. That way Dame Lillard can just take some possessions, not completely off, but he's not 100% balls to the wall like we saw with Russell Westbrook in his triple-double season. So CJ McCollum, he's going to come back for that reason. And B, we know that this Blazers team is a team that is fighting for that playoff spot. They do not want to be in the play-in. They need to be in the playoffs. The West is something that is consistently changing week to week. So I think once CJ comes back, we are going to see the usage high and the production there as well. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And yeah, that's it. I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.